We can build a world anew. Hand in hand we make it true. Every thought a brighter hue. In our hearts we feel the groove. Turn ideas into gold. Let the magic unfold. Every story to be told makes the world a place to hold.
Welcome to our very first episode of Beyond the Blueprint. We sit down with artist, architect, and visionary Betirri, where we discuss the impact of urban design and art on the EaDo community. From sports to parks, houses, and art, we'll discover how design can shape a better future. All right, welcome to Beyond the Blueprint. We've got Betirri with us here today, and I'm really excited to get to know him alongside of you guys. We met many years ago. I guess it was a car event, something like that. And so we got to chatting, realized that we both have a background in architecture, and just kind of took the friendship from there. So we reconnected recently, and I wanted to catch up with Betirri to see what he's up to and all the cool projects, artwork, and otherwise that he's working on. So Betirri, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give us just a brief background on what it is that kind of brought you into architecture.
Yeah, well, trained for the space here. Yes, I've been here in Houston for 27 years. I have two big passions, or three, I will say. So sports or soccer, mainly art and architecture. And I've had the opportunity to combine both into one profession. So I have this crossover where I combine my two passions into this one profession. So mainly I try to advocate for the importance of art and sports in society. And from that, I just take it to the professional level.
Fantastic. So tell me a little bit then. You went to University of Houston and you did your bachelor's in architecture, and then you went to your master's degree within the arts program. So kind of give me that transition of like, how did you decide first on the architecture portion, and then what led you towards the art and the fine art aspect of that?
Yeah, so first when I was a teenager and I was trying to find my path on my career, I've always loved art or the creative side. I just didn't know what route to take. So I thought if I study, I was thinking graphic design, it was going to limit me a little bit. So by studying architecture, I think that covers more of a broad aspect for the creative side. And that allowed me to actually learn more about the whole area in just the creative space, because I think you learn more about the vision, how you create a space, how you create a concept. And from that, I took it into the arts space. I've been always drawing and painting, mainly sports, or like little soccer figures, logos. But when I graduated from architecture, what I learned, really what I took out of the school, it was that it is very important to create a concept in what you're creating. So when I was in painting school, I was thinking, okay, I want to create something related to sports and soccer, but I needed to bring a concept where I would carry more of a message in those paintings. So that's when I came up with these bodiless sports figures in motion. And what I end up having or doing, it's representing the essence of the sport. So I don't paint the sport, the bodies and the faces, because I really want to focus on the jersey and the colors of the teams, which for me, it is the essence of every team.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Going through architecture school, it teaches you almost like a way of thinking more than specific skills. And so what you said there about, you need to have a concept, I would almost say that it's like a storytelling, right? So architecture really teaches us how to observe the things around us and then to come up with a narrative through shapes and spatial solutions, connecting to the community voices, things like that. So, I'm curious for your paintings, obviously there's a sports focus, but is there a deeper narrative there that these paintings are trying to tell for you?
Yes, now that I look back, it's actually from maybe a frustration of myself not being able to become a professional soccer player, because that has been always my dream as a child. But having asthma, that was very hard for me to keep training and playing. So I couldn't keep playing, but I love the sport. I always watch it, and by really now painting it, I stay close to the sport, and I feel that now I'm an advocate for soccer and what it really means in general, the sports in the world, because it really unifies people. It is a universal sport that really unifies people. Anyone can play it. It's you just kick a ball and you start creating that game. And then I find different analogies of the game with life too. So it's just very important for me, soccer in my life.
I actually went to my first international pro game this summer between Mexico and Brazil, and I'd never been to one at that level. And I think that was the moment that I understood, like, okay, this is like absolutely nuts. But it was so fun. It was just all the people there from all walks of life, and everybody was having an amazing time, and just, bring people together, conversations, community. So I think that's a huge part of it. So maybe we talk a little bit about that. When it comes to blending art and architecture, that's kind of one component, and now you're blending sports into the art. So where is that intersection of sports with design, with the built environment? How do those things go together?
Yeah, I think so. In general, in sports, I think really it's a way to really start to keep in a very active and healthy lifestyle, and that's what I'm trying to also keep advocating. I think it is just important to just stay active, practice any sport, be in motion. Every time that I'm designing every space, I'm thinking about all those different aspects of how your mind can stay healthy and your body. So I think sports is just a great way to really stay active. It's a game, so it can be for leisure or entertainment. So I just think it's so important to keep integrating sports in different ways. Now you have pickleball, which is more recreational, but it is allowing other people to play and to stay active. So for me, it's that healthy lifestyle that I want to keep advocating for.
Yeah, so I think that's super important to touch on too, that since we're in Houston, when you look at all the major cities around the world, there's, all these amazing parks and public spaces. And I feel like, at least my perspective on Houston is that there's this craving, there's this desire from, our community that we want these green spaces, we want these outdoor recreational spots, we want, places that have a feeling. And it's such a strange thing because Houston is such a patchwork, and it's definitely like a melting pot. But it seems like a lot of times these public spaces are very slow in coming. It seems like, and I don't know if that's an issue with, city leadership, or maybe there's not enough outspoken groups out there, but I'd love to get your perspective on, the urban environment and Houston specifically, of how do we address the need for physical fitness and, recreational activities, outdoor spaces, design. How do these things all start to come together in this city?
Hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting because we are seeing this with this project. We're proposing to a city ballpark. We'll talk about that later, but that's something that I came up or created at the end of 2016. It was an initiative to create a linear park, which now it became a real project. But in general, I think it's Houston is a very young city. And yesterday I was doing a lecture at Rice University School of Architecture, and we're talking about that this ballpark, will be more of a model for future developments, urban developments, because we don't really, like you said, we see the parks, we see the regular development, but really nothing more beyond that and what we can really do for the future. So we're right now building for the present, what we can build, like just like what's here, but not really what it could be for the future. We can think of innovation, the culture, just different aspects like recycling. Why don't we recycle in Houston? Why it is a car city driven city. So you have different aspects. The culture is just starting to grow. I think Houston is starting to find its own identity. So I think there are many different factors, but I think it is us that we can really change that by creating these initiatives and really work together with city officials, community, and just corporations as well, that now they're trying to engage into all these different projects, more into sustainability, walkability, green spaces. So it's about like bringing all all people together. And that's why I love soccer, because it brings it very, very natural. But with all these projects, it's just, you have to kind of push that vision that we have as architects or visionaries.
Yeah, I think the advocacy part is a huge piece of it too. When we look at the success of projects like, the Bayou redevelopment along Buffalo Bayou between Memorial Park and downtown, it's hugely popular and successful. The redevelopment in Memorial Park with the land bridges and the Eastern Glades, I think it's having that vision, being able to communicate it, obviously, but then getting the right people behind it. And sometimes that can be the challenge. So let's talk a little bit more about Goal Park. Obviously this was an idea you had many, many years ago. So what was that process then of finding the right people who would be an advocate for that project? And how did you get them involved and interested in that?
Yeah, so Gold Park, essentially, it's the enhancement of 7 blocks of the Columbia Tap Trail. This Columbia Tap Trail goes from downtown to the medical center 4 miles, and we enhance the 7 blocks through innovation, culture, athletics, and nature. Those 4 are pillars for Gold Park. And it has been a learning process. I didn't know how to develop a park, but I think my art career kind of pushed me to have that tenacity and to have that hunger to execute an idea. So it has been just a process of learning who really supports the project. Luckily, a lot of people are supporting the project, but they don't actually know how to implement this vision. So it takes just time and effort and stay on top of it. But yeah, like you said, it has been quite a few years, and now we're finally putting all the pieces together. They're all also aligning with the private sector, the public sector, and also what's coming in the city. Just a little bit going back a little bit to the vision. I think it's also thinking outside of the box. And I think whenever we travel and we look at different projects and spaces that we get inspired, that's really what I think the inspiration comes from. Where I'm thinking like, okay, I think we can have this in Houston. Houston is a world-class city that we can have these projects in here. Why don't we make them? So it's finding that path of how do we execute these projects, how to come up with the project and make it work and execute the whole idea.
Yeah, no, that's rallying the troops, so to speak, and getting everybody behind it. We have, World Cup obviously is coming, as I'm sure you are very well aware of. But do you think that played a heavy part in getting people to stand behind Goal Park as a concept?
Yes, that definitely is. It's helping, and the reason is because the park, the Goal Park, the nature of its location, it's very close to. It's actually right in front of Shell Energy Stadium where Dynamo plays. So that's one stadium, but we have a Minute Maid for baseball and Toyota Center for basketball. So the proximity of these 3 stadiums, that's what it was just very natural to have that pillar of athletics into Goal Park. And now that the World Cup is coming, it's like the biggest sporting event in the world. It brings a lot of people, a lot of passion. So people get excited, and we were aiming to have the park completed by 2026 so that we'd receive all the fans. We create this safe space, public space for fans, and they can gather outside. There are these spaces called the Fan Fest where people come and watch the games. If you don't have access to if you're not able to get a ticket to the stadium, so you can watch the games in there. So we're trying to have that space ready for the World Cup, and we're thinking that it will be ready by 2026.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I remember looking at the timeline on the presentation, and 2024 looks like it's the year of construction. So have teams been mobilized? Is it under construction now?
So we're on the permitting process right now. Construction, we're hoping that it's not going to take that long because it's mainly ground that we have to work on. We're not really lifting any walls. We will have some furniture, like outside furniture. But we're working right now on all those details. And at the same time, we're working with the city and the funding part. So there are so many different pieces that still we're working on. But yeah, we're hoping that maybe by next summer we'll start construction.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. I know it's a treat to be able to see those ideas come to life. I'm looking forward to seeing it. So, it's funny. We have some crossing paths, you and I. I didn't even realize it until I started looking into the Gold Park. I guess it was in let's see. I think it was 2007. I was still in grad school at Texas Tech. We had a Houston-based practicum studio, so I was down here in Houston working, full time as well as doing studio work. And one of our projects was to come up with a master plan for the Dynamo Stadium before it was built, come up with, where the training facilities would be and how we would repurpose part of Gus Wortham golf course. And so it's interesting because one of our proposals, one of the designs was, we had the stadium in its current location, and then north-south, we did one of those parks where it connected all the blocks. So I think there's definitely that hunger, right? Where we want cool spaces. We want to be able to connect to, the amenities in the communities. So kudos to you for being able to bring this into existence. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brinn. Yeah, it's really having that patience and and being very perseverant on the project, because it really takes time, since it's a public and it will be a public and private partnership. So it just takes time to bring everyone together. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell me a little bit, we're talking about the public-private partnerships, and, I see artwork, obviously, in your background in your studio there. So, what's the role of art in the public spaces, and how do we get people on board with championing and advocating for art in public spaces?
Yes. So first, I think it really beautifies the space. Every time you have a blank canvas or just a wall, and you change that with a mural, it really serves as a way of inspiration for the community. It beautifies the space. It may feel like a safer space as well. So I think it's just very important to keep advocating for all this public art in general in the city.
When we think about public art, usually it's going to be a partnership between, companies and individuals. And, how do we get more individuals to, I guess, recognize that importance? Like, is there an education component? Is it just exposure? Like, what do you think is the step to get everybody behind more public art?
Well, I think it is both. Yes, education is one of them. But I think what I see most of the times is it's really the funding. Not everyone really supports that idea. And whenever I have a project for art, it's the budget for the art is the last thing that they think of. So, and it's the least amount most of the times for that it's allocated to the art. So it's difficult in that sense, because when you sustain yourself from an artistic practice, you have to look for all these projects, and then you have to get them, and you have competition as well. So it's really, I think, it will be education and letting people know that the importance of art, the public art in the city, so that more organizations and maybe different entities support funding these projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I was recently talking with someone who's basically part of a nonprofit, and their whole thing is to raise funds. And it was during a business seminar, business workshop. And so, as we were talking to her, you think about a typical business. You have a product or a service, and there's a price, and somebody exchanges the money for that product or service. But when it comes to things like nonprofit, and you're asking for donations, it's whatever price you want. So then how you connect with those people and convince them, to give that money. And I think it's probably a similar challenge and approach when it comes to things like public art, because it's this thing that's really hard to define. It doesn't exist yet. What is that? How do you measure impact? And so I think, one of the things that I've been interested in lately over the last couple of years is measuring the impact of design, measuring the impact of architecture, because I think that's going to be integral and pivotal to how we in the profession are able to communicate our value. And once we're able to do that better, then I think that the funding and, the awareness, all those things will come with it. And so, I wonder if there's maybe a way to start to measure impact of art on communities, whether that's, number of events that culminate and go around this sculpture piece, or, number of Instagram selfies. I don't know what that metric is, but I think that could be an interesting path to start to look at art and these philanthropic types of events and things in different ways.
Yes, yes. And I think it is, I may not know the metric, but that's most of the times the social media aspect of different businesses looking for a mural is that they tell you, oh, I want something Instagram. I mean, something that you can take a photo, like a selfie to post on Instagram. And that way it creates traffic and awareness for the business. So it's for sure a marketing tool for the businesses. And I think for any organization as well. So yeah, like you said, it's important to tell that story that it is an asset that is bring value to the business, to the organization, to the cause. So whatever it's aimed for at that mural, I think it's bringing a lot of value. It's just that it's hard to sell it when the culture is not there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I understand the struggle. I know that it is real. Okay, so last topic here. Speaking of art and murals, you live in a very unique home and it has a giant mural on the side. I would love to hear about the journey and the decision to design and build your own home. Obviously, you're in your first floor studio there right now. And how did that go? Where did the idea come from?
Yes, so that I think that has been part of the whole journey of practicing arts and also trying to get back to architecture. And when I was just first dating my now wife, we were talking about trying to build our own home. And I was living right in front of where I live, and I found this property, and I told my girlfriend back then, well, why don't we design our home here? And she was like, well, I don't know. So that was right before the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I was able to acquire the property and it started the process of the concept. And just like any other architectural project, I created designs, concepts, sketches, and then I built all the drawings and then the small physical model. And when I showed it to my girlfriend, she was like, well, this is interesting. Let's see if we can make it happen. So yeah, after 16 months, we were able to finish the whole building, the whole process. We loved it. Just also the nature of the location. It's interesting because it's right next to the train tracks, and it was a challenge in a way that the footprint is small. So because it is small and it is right next to the train tracks, it was very challenging to build something feasible. We had to go through a variance. I had to come up with different design solutions, create some cantilever all around the perimeter of the house, so that on the second and third floor it was functional. And then we painted it pink and painted that mural that was dedicated to mental health.
Well, I'm a big fan of pink. If you didn't already know, that's one of our brand colors. CYK, so the magenta factor. I'm definitely down with the pink. I actually drove by it the other day on my way to another project, but yeah, definitely it stands out, and I think it's one of those eye-catching structures for sure. So, tell me a little bit more, as an architect, being able to build your own house. Obviously, it's just having done that myself, it's definitely one of those dreams come true for you. Did you have any, I guess, lessons learned, or would you do things differently if you had to do it again?
Yes. Well, there was a challenge of the pandemic with the supply. It was just too expensive, but we had to come up with different ideas, very creative ideas to make that budget work. But yeah, I think that I will do a few things differently. First, it was just really adapting to the site. So for the next one, it will be really finding a big lot, because having this tall house always going up downstairs, it's sometimes it can be too much, but we're used to it now. But yeah, I think in general, the process is gonna be different just because of the timing that it will be, and I think every property or location is unique. So I'm sure I will react or have a solution for that specific site.
Yeah, it's hugely important to recognize that when you have a unique building site, it's not just, a rectangle, that having an architect involved, having someone who understands not only the conceptual possibilities, but technical feasibility, code, things like that, it's so important, because you can get something that maximizes the potential, right? And so It's funny, our house is actually really similar, where most townhouse lots in Houston are long and skinny, hot dog style, is what like I like to call it. Ours is cut hamburger. Ours is cut the other direction. And so most people weren't interested in the property, and we came along and I said, I can do something with that. You know, it's shallow, but it's wide.
Right.
Those types of challenges, I think, it's what we thrive on, and it's coming up with something that's unique for where it is and why we're doing it. And like you said, back to that big concept.
Yes, and I think that's our experience as an architect, right? Like really coming up with these solutions to develop and build something unique.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Betirri. It was great having you here today.
Turn ideas into gold. Let the magic unfold. Every story to be told makes the world a place to hold. Shout it loud and make it known. Seeds of thought are always sown. From the seeds a tree has grown. Inspiration overflown.